Welcome back to my channel. My name is Johanna, and for those of you who are new here, welcome, and for those of you who are returning, welcome back. Now, it is nearly midnight. I do work tomorrow, so we're going to just get stuck in. I wanted to do this video because if you're like me and you don't have a sewing machine, or even if you did, the knowledge of how to use it, and you want to make your own DIY fabric mask, I'm going to show you how you can do one relatively easy with some hand sewing. And this pattern I did get from Rin DIY. I will link her channel below. Now, her video is very informative, but it isn't in English, so if you have any kind of crafting or sewing skills, you can easily follow along. But there were some things that I wasn't aware of until I started doing it. And I've actually made, well, this is going to be number 4 tonight. This is the most successful, but this, when I was doing this one, it did make me realize something. This one was definitely more successful than the very first attempt, although there are some flaws here. And if you are a sewer, please be gentle with me, because I mean, with a hand sewn item, you're not going to get perfection. In fact, I mean, I guess I should say that about my channel in general. But what I'm going to be using is this 100% cotton fabric. It is a fat quarter, so I did look, and it is 18 by 22. I'm hoping that this is stuff that you guys either have on hand or can be easily sourced. If you have any men's button-down shirts, aloha shirts, basically you want something 100% cotton, that works perfectly well. And then also you'll need 2 pieces, but we'll talk about that in a little bit, because you're going to need this piece and this piece. The actual mask from the fat quarter, you can get 2, and then the second piece, this one right here, you'll need a separate fabric. It can be actually the same fabric, it just, I like seeing the difference. This is directional, so you're definitely going to want to be mindful of that. I mean, although by the time everything gets shrunk down, I mean, you're really not going to see a lot of what's going on. So, I mean, again, it's up to you. It's nearly midnight. I do also want to say that this is not, as far as I'm aware, medical grade. I don't know. Well, no, before I start cutting. Okay, let's just kumbaya. So this is just a regular 8.5 by 11 paper. She did give the dimensions of 25 centimeters long by 18 centimeters high, and then every 5.5 centimeters she had marked here on the corners, and then she had cut it out so that you get this sort of stop sign shape. And then for the second piece you're going to need, you want it 14.5 centimeters by 15.5 centimeters, and this will be important because we are going to make a pocket in order to be able to put a filter. You will need 2 pieces of this size. You will also need 2 pieces of this size. But again, it doesn't matter if the back and front is the same. It doesn't matter if they're all 4 different. Again, use whatever you have. And I couldn't find my pins, but I do have some needles here, so just to hold this in place temporarily. And again, if you're sore, I'm sorry. But you want to have this as straight as possible. Now, I've been watching a ton of these videos, and this one I thought might be the easiest to do by hand with limited supplies. I think I had started to say, I'm not sure that this is medical grade. It doesn't have the metal at the top so that you can fit it to your nose. This is something that I want to make for my parents and for myself eventually when I go out and about and have to run essential errands. but the very first one I put together, sorry, talking and doing is not my strong point. First one I put together took forever. The second one I put together took forever. The third one that I just finished actually didn't take that long. So I thought, well, let me jump on, film this. I'm going to talk through as much as I can. Again, talking and doing is a very difficult thing for tutorials, but again, because the tutorial that I watched was not in English, I had to guess at some things. And some of it is pretty self-explanatory, but some of it actually I could have used some translation. And I had the captions on, so I don't know if she actually even mentioned it. And when I get to that part, I will tell you a little bit more. Now, what I'm going to do, and I'll start with you here on camera, is I'm going to grab some thread. You don't want it too long because it'll get stuck. And if possible, you want a longer needle than a shorter needle because it just will help this go quickly. And I'm actually going to double up on my strands, and then I'll just make a knot. So you just kind of rub them together and then zhuzh them at the back. Again, I'm not a sewer. Any sewing I've done is hand sewing. You will be able to see the stitches, and again, I don't have a sewing machine, and even if I did, I wouldn't know how to use it. Now, for this beginning stitch, should have said, you want your right sides, the sides that you want facing outwards, facing inwards for this part. And when you start, I like to go a few times back and forth just to secure that. And then we're going to be doing a running stitch. Now I thought when I was making the second one that took forever and a day, like almost 2 hours, that I should do a back stitch, but a running stitch is actually going to be perfectly okay for this. And what a running stitch is you're going to insert and you're going to come out, and then normally you just do one at a time. But I used to do Hawaiian quilting, and when you actually do the echo part of the quilting, you would do multiple of that. So you would stick it in, come back out, stick it in, come back out. And so long as it's only like 2 layers like this, then you can do a number of those. Now you want this to lay flat. You don't want to gather it. So you do want to be mindful of that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go all the way around here, all the way around here, but these 2 short sides are going to remain open. And when I'm done with that, then I will bring you guys back. All right, guys, so I'm nearly finished sewing up the sides. And whenever I start or stop, I like to go in and out a few times. If you were on a sewing machine, and I'm not sure what the technical term is, but the few times I did go on a sewing machine, you kind of go up into the edge, go a little past, and then you kind of run them over again, and then you run them over again. That's how I see it in my head, that you ran over someone and it didn't stick, so you ran over them again, and then you ran over them again. I know, guys, that's weird, but that's always how I've looked at that. So now that you've got that, you want to very gently just bring the insides out, and it takes a little bit of maneuvering because the hole is kind of small, but that's okay. Now, in the video that she did, she had left one of the other sides open, one of the long sides, but on another video, and if I can find it out, I'll link it below, she had just left the 2 sides open, so that's what I did. And I know we have an iron in the house. I'm certainly not going to iron anything at 12:01, which it currently is right now. I'm gonna just kind of poke out those corners And there we have our stop sign. We don't need to worry about those raw edges. That will be taken care of, although that's a little alarming. But it isn't going to last forever, but if you don't have access to all the things, it'll last long enough. And then we need a second piece. So this is just a scrap that I have. And can we get this? Okay. So and again, for all you sewers, I know you're probably yelling at me right now that I should pin it down, but honestly, I don't want to. So you're gonna cut that, and then you're gonna cut that. If you have one of those rotary cutters, and I think I do somewhere, then you can use that, but again, depending on the materials that you have available to you, that might not be available to you. Okay, now what's important about this piece, and this is the one that I didn't realize until I did the third one, is what you need is to have the 15-inch or the 15 centimeter side left open. So this one right here. So we're going to put the right sides together again because we want a finished edge, because this should be about the same size as that once we sew down these sides. And don't worry that it's too short, that's actually important. So again, we want the long sides like that. And we're going to sew down the short side. And I'm going to do the same thing where I'm going to keep this open, sew in the sides there, again with the running stitch. That's perfectly fine. And then when I'm done, I'll bring you guys back. All right, guys, so I've sewn the pieces, and I'm just gonna flip that around. And so this will be waiting for us. And again, if you have one and it isn't midnight, you would want to press this out. It just makes it easier, but I'm not and I won't. For this one, we will need to measure 5.5 centimeters down. Now, again, guys, if you have that disappearing ink sewing thing, then use that. But if you don't, then just use whatever marker is handy. And really, if you've gotten it as close as you can, what you're doing is you're sectioning off this right here. So you're creating a fold up until that mark there. So again, 5.5 centimeters. So one right there, one right there. Now, I've always liked the look of American quilting, the piecemeal quilting, but I am of the same opinion of it like the ancient Hawaiians, or the Hawaiians when the missionaries came, because in the mainland you need them for warmth, and I think they were really, and still are, very prevalent in the Midwest, Pennsylvania area, places like that. And you would basically just take all the scraps of making whatever clothes you were making, and you would piece those together to make something bigger so that you were using all of your products. Well, when the missionaries came here in Hawaii, Okay, let me focus on one thing before I talk story with you guys. So, when the missionaries came and the Native Hawaiians adopted a more modest dress, and you can Google what I mean by that, they would do the long muumuus, M-U-U, M-U-U. Well, because of that, when they were cutting out the fabric, they weren't left with little pieces. They were left with bigger pieces. And so what they would do is they would make their own style of quilting because they liked it, but it didn't need to be functional because it's hot here, and it didn't need to be done quickly. Sorry, let me get back to this before I finish that story. Now, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get as close to the edge as possible, but we're not stitching over the edge. And so, again, I always like to start this as securely as I can. And if you have a sewing machine, this would go by infinitely quicker. Because there's more thickness here, I can only do about 2 of those running stitches. And all those extra threads are annoying. And I'm not using this color thread so that you can see it. It literally was the very first one I pulled out of my stash. So, I mean, it could have been purple, it could have been bright yellow. I didn't really care at that point. And so you're just going to want to do this all the way across the top. And you don't have to have them both folded in. It's just I wanted to. And I don't know if you saw what I did, but you wanted to fold on the line that you just made. Anyway, back to the Hawaiian quilting. And it never made sense to the Native Hawaiian ladies that the missionary women would cut up what could be large pieces, because again, when you're doing the muumuu, you're not cutting a lot of pieces. It's big panels of fabric. And so they developed their own style of quilting because, again, it wasn't necessary to use it for winter, and therefore it didn't need to be done quickly. And what they would do is they would make sort of, if you've ever made paper snowflakes where you fold it into quarters and then you cut it out, and then when you unfurl it you have like a snowflake pattern. Well, the Hawaiian ladies would do something similar to that, but instead of snowflakes, which they probably didn't see, they would sort of make symmetrical designs based on nature. A lot of them were based on nature. And if I can find some pictures, I'll insert that now. And so they would just based on, with an invisible stitch, the top fabric to the bottom fabric. And based on what I've read, traditionally it was usually just red and white because that was the easiest colors to come by. And then they would put the top layer that they had invisible stitched. Such a hard story to tell while I'm trying to work. And then they would sandwich it with some thin cotton batting and then a bottom, probably linen piece. They would stitch the actual snowflake or pattern directly to those 3 pieces to secure them together, and then they would do an echo type of quilting where it was sort of like waves emanating out from the piece. And some of them are stunning and they are intricate, and they take years to do because of the size of it, but I used to do that. I used to do Hawaiian quilting because I loved the look of it. And again, it never made sense to me to cut things up, to put them back together, to make bigger pieces. Although I love the look of a pieced quilt. That seemed like a lot of work. I don't really do sewing machines. clearly. And with those kind of things, you have to be very accurate, which clearly I am not. So I don't know if I explained, but, and I really am trying, guys. I'm hoping you guys are getting some value from this. But you're going to want to do that side, and then I'm going to finish that side. And again, you want to keep it on the line. And I don't even care that you can see the marker. Don't even know how much I don't care that you can see it. But once I'm done with that, then I will bring you guys back. Okay, and if you're not familiar with hand sewing, the way you finish off is you just go in, a small little place like that, and you're forming that loop, and then you stick your needle through the loop, and then you just do that 3 or 4 times, and at least the way that I've been taught, that's sufficient to finish your sewing. Okay, so again, if you have it and the access and the wherewithal, then you would press that down, but we don't, so we're not. And here is that piece. And again, yep, that's pretty close. And so what you're going to want to do, even though that's short, is the unfinished edge, you're going to want to sew to the top of that. Again, we still have those things open. And just to give us a little bit of stability, we're going to pin that. And then this one we want to stretch over and get the bottom there. Again, if you have proper pins, use that, but if not, you could use a paper clip too. Again, we want to keep it together. And because my hand sewing is not even, this actually should be a little bit shorter, but I don't want to cut it because it's going to unravel the stitching. And just like we did before, I'm going to do a running stitch at the top and the bottom. Oh, okay. It is important though that this is the front. Oh, wait. Because that's the one that I got confused on when I was doing. Oh, okay, we nearly made a mistake. So this is where we want to put this. Okay. Because this is the front, the one where you can see the stitches, that's the front. The inside is the one that you can fold together. So let's try this again. So we're going to line that up at the top. And stick that in. And then we're going to bring this down to the bottom. And stick that in. Okay, so where it would fold in, that's on the inside, and we're putting this on the outside. Okay, so once I'm done with attaching tops and bottoms, and then I'll bring you guys back. All right, guys, so tops and bottoms done. Try to get organized, threads everywhere, and then you're gonna fold this. So again, this is on the inside. And kind of press that down. And so that's your front, and that's your inside. And then fold these back on each other. And just to keep that secure, I use a binder clip right here in the middle because we're going to make some loops on the end. Now, the rest of it you can go rather quickly, but this one you're definitely going to want to take a little bit of time on because you're going to want to fold probably like 1/4 of an inch and then fold again. because we're going to be inserting the elastic. Again, if you have it, go ahead and iron this down. You can iron as you go, but we don't, and I won't. But you definitely want to fold on the inside. So again, that you'd have this really long rectangle action going on right there. Now, if I can get a needle to go through all these layers, I will, but I can't. So I'm just gonna hold this. This one, you want to take your time with in the sewing, and you definitely want to try to make it as even as possible. Otherwise, you're gonna struggle trying to get your elastic through. But again, with the ends, I try to go in and out a few more extra times just to give it some security. And this one, because it is, I mean, I think in here it might be like 5 or 6 layers. I'm just gonna do a running stitch again. You just want to make sure that one's tucked and as even as you can. It does make a difference. It does make a huge difference. And then when I'm done with this side, I will do the other side, and we've got 2 more steps to go after this, and then we're there. All right, guys, so I've got both sides done. And then what you're going to want to do next is you're gonna have to finagle with it a little bit, but that point right there where these two meet, you're gonna wanna bend that back. You're gonna wanna bend this back, again, as much as you can, because we did sew over edges. And this is actually a better example. This one is kind of chunky, so it doesn't open as much, but it's still gonna be usable. But basically, you wanna bring that edge to the straight edge, and then you're going to want to sew through all of the layers. I'll show you what I mean. And again, you are totally going to be able to see this on the other side. And if you were doing a sewing machine, it would be the same thing, but the stitches would definitely be more even, and you probably would use a thread color that sort of disappeared. But we're just trying to protect ourselves, so this is good enough. Okay, so when that folds out, it doesn't look very big, but that is actually big enough to cover your mouth and your nose. I'm gonna cut that. I want to cut the fabric. And again, you can see the stitches, but we're cool with that. And we are actually done with the sewing. So this is the inside, like that. And then for the elastic, what the measurements that she had in the video, she said 22 centimeters. But I don't remember her showing how she tied it together. And by the end of it, I was already doing other things, so that could be on me. But I found that for this one, because I will be wasting, if you can call it that, some of it, I cut it to 30. Now, again, I happen to have this on hand because I do traveler's notebooks. But if you don't, I've seen people, this is from the sewing section of Walmart. It's not as thick, but it still works. If you have the hair ties, like not the scrunchies, but like that size, you can use multiple of them. You just want it to have it long enough so they can go around your ear. Now, I have found through trial and error that if you get a large paper clip and unwind it, that is going to be your best friend, because we need to stick this in and have it come out the other side. Don't have it come out all the way, just a little. And then take one of your pieces and then just gently pull that through. Okay. And you don't have to worry that it's in the middle because we're going to deal with that. And go ahead and tie and then tie again. It's really awkward on camera. All right, and kind of bring the knot up and then really pull it together. And you can see what I meant by wasting. I don't even know what the word was I said, but I know I said something. And then you're gonna pull that in and see, you don't have to worry that that knot's gonna hurt you on your ear. And then you would do the same on this side. Now the way I would recommend washing this is, it probably would get really banged up in the washing machine. But, I mean, unless it's getting dirty, in order to sanitize and sterilize this, what you can do is wash this with some just soap and water, and then just gently wash it, especially this inside here where your mouth and nose have the contact with, and then rinse it really good. And you may want to do that with as hot of water as you can tolerate. You may even want to let it soak for like 10 or 20 minutes in super hot water after you have washed it. Now, again, if you are a sewer, you probably will pre-wash your fabric and do all of that. Oh my goodness. But I didn't. Oh my God. You do use a sewing machine, then you're definitely going to get better results, but I think this works pretty well. And then how she used it as a filter is she just put another fabric inside. So basically, you stick it in the pocket there. You're definitely a lot neater, but it's almost 1 o'clock in the morning and I work tomorrow. And then you would make this super neat and you'd have that extra protection. Again, still follow the guidelines on, you know, washing your hands and doing all that. And then you would take that out. I have seen people who have put like parchment paper, HEPA filters, whatever. I mean, the more protection you can give yourself, the better. But I think you guys get the idea. Oh God, I'm tired. I'm so tired. But this is the mask, guys. Please be kind in the comments. I really did try my best. All right, guys, that's it for me for now. And as always, aloha.